Before we dive into this thrilling story, I'd like to invite you to subscribe to the channel. Each new subscription motivates us to bring you more captivating tales like the one you're about to hear. Now let's immerse ourselves in the incredible journey of a woman who defied all expectations. The wooden gavel struck the block with a bang that silenced the courtroom. Judge Ramirez adjusted his glasses and scrutinized the documents before him, his face a mask of professional neutrality. At the defense table, Claire Peterson nervously fidgeted with her hands in her lap, her eyes red from sleepless nights. Across from her, Edward and Patricia Thompson, the property owners and plaintiffs in the eviction case, wore confident smiles as they whispered to their attorney. The back door of the courtroom creaked open, and a determined woman in her 30s walked in, carrying a brown leather briefcase. Her brown hair was neatly tied up in a professional bun, and her immaculate navy suit contrasted sharply with the pallor of her face. There was something familiar about her features, the same almond-shaped eyes and determined chin as Patricia Thompson. "Your Honor," the newcomer said, her voice clear and firm, echoing through the room. Anna Thompson representing the defendant, Claire Peterson. The silence that followed was absolute. Patricia Thompson gasped, dropping the pen she was holding. Edward Thompson paled, his face transforming into a mask of disbelief. Their attorney looked confused, glancing repeatedly between Anna and his clients. "Anna?" Patricia finally stammered, her voice barely a whisper. Judge Ramirez looked over his glasses. "Do you know the defense attorney, Mrs. Thompson?" Edward abruptly stood up. "Your Honor, this is... "Yes," Anna replied for her father, her eyes never leaving his. "Edward and Patricia Thompson are my biological parents. However, we haven't spoken in 12 years, since I was kicked out of the house at 19. A murmur swept through the room. The judge banged his gavel again. "Order. Mrs. Thompson, the attorney, do we have any conflicts of interest to address?" Anna adjusted her blazer and replied with studied calm. "None, Your Honor. My personal relationship with the plaintiffs ended over a decade ago. I am here purely in a professional capacity to represent my client, who is being unjustly evicted due to dangerous living conditions that the landlords refuse to fix." The judge considered for a moment. "Then we will proceed, but I will be closely monitoring this situation. The defense may present its opening statements." Anna opened her briefcase, pulling out photographs that she began to distribute. Her gaze met Claire's, who looked both confused and awed. Anna offered a reassuring smile before turning to the judge. "Your Honor, my client withheld rent after repeated ignored requests for essential repairs. I have documentation of 6 formal requests regarding bathroom leaks and hazardous electrical issues. More critically, tests confirmed the presence of toxic black mold that has caused respiratory problems for my client, as attested by her doctor." As Anna spoke, Patricia kept her eyes locked on her, a storm of emotions passing over her face. Edward was furiously whispering to his attorney, who appeared increasingly uncomfortable. The judge examined the photographs, his brow gradually furrowing. "These conditions are indeed alarming. Mr. Patterson, would you like to respond to the allegations?" The Thompsons' attorney stood up, visibly shaken. "Your Honor, my clients were not adequately informed about the extent of the problems. They lie," Anna interrupted, presenting more documents. "I have delivery confirmations for all the notifications sent by mail with the landlord's signatures. Additionally, text messages exchanged with Mrs. Peterson, where the landlords acknowledged the issues but refused to fix them, suggesting that a little mold never killed anyone." Patricia paled at hearing her own words read aloud. Edward looked ready to explode, his face red against his graying hair. The courtroom watched the unfolding drama with silent fascination as the judge carefully examined each document presented, his expression growing increasingly grave. 2 hours later, Anna and Claire exited the courthouse together. The judge had ruled not only against the eviction, but also ordered the Thompsons to pay for all necessary repairs, along with a substantial fine for housing code violations. Claire could barely hold back tears as she clasped Anna's hands. "You saved my home. How can I thank you?" Anna smiled, feeling a mix of exhaustion and triumph. "You don't need to thank me. It's my job. But your parents? You never mentioned. Some stories are too complicated to tell all at once." Anna replied softly. Let's just say today was a long-awaited victory. An elderly man in a well-tailored suit approached them on the courthouse steps. His kind eyes contrasted with his formal demeanor. Miss Thompson. Arnold Wilson, attorney for your grandfather, Richard Thompson. Anna blinked, confused. My grandfather passed away 12 years ago. Precisely, Mr. Wilson handed her a card. When you can, I would like to discuss some outstanding matters related to your grandfather's will. Specifically, a trust fund established in your name. A trust fund? Anna repeated, perplexed. I don't understand. My parents always said my grandfather left everything to them. The elderly lawyer frowned. I'm afraid there's much you don't know. And I must add, certain circumstances surrounding your grandfather's passing that, well, perhaps it's best we discuss this privately. Before Anna could respond, she saw her parents exiting the courthouse, accompanied by their disheveled attorney. Patricia stopped upon spotting Anna, her face a mix of anger and something that almost seemed like fear. You've always been ungrateful, Patricia hissed, her voice low but cutting. Your grandfather would have been ashamed. Anna felt something awaken within her, not the familiar hurt, but a new suspicion, catalyzed by Mr. Wilson's words. Interesting you mention Grandpa now, Mum. I just found out that I might not know the whole story about his death. Edward gripped Patricia's arm tightly. Let's go. We have nothing to say to her. Anna watched her parents walk away, noticing how her mother's shoulders trembled slightly. She turned to Mr. Wilson. When can we talk? The sooner the better, he replied, his gaze following the Thompsons as they retreated. I've been holding on to this information for a long time, perhaps too long. That night, in her small but tidy apartment, Anna sat at her desk with a cup of tea, looking at old photographs. One in particular caught her attention. Her at 17 next to her grandfather Richard, a kind-looking man with bright eyes and white hair. He had his arm around her, beaming with pride as Anna held a debate trophy. Anna's phone rang, interrupting her thoughts. The name on the screen surprised her. Melissa Thompson, her younger sister, the golden child of the family. Anna? Melissa's voice trembled. Did you really show up in court today? Dad is furious and Mum won't stop crying. Anna sighed. Hello to you too, Mel, 12 years without talking, and this is how we start. There was a pause. I'm sorry. It's just... It was a shock. They always told me you chose to abandon us. Of course they did, Anna replied, trying to rein in the bitterness in her voice. The truth is more complicated. They kicked me out when they found out I applied to law school instead of medical school. What? They told me you dropped out of college to travel the world. Anna let out a humorless laugh. I lived in my car for 3 months. I worked 3 jobs to pay for school. I graduated from law school and passed the bar exam without a dime of their help. The silence on the other end of the line was deafening. Finally, Melissa spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. Anna, I think we need to talk in person. There are things about Grandpa Richard that never made sense to me. Anna felt a chill run down her spine. It's funny you mention that. I just met his attorney today, Mr. Wilson. Melissa's voice rose an octave. They forbade me from talking to him years ago. Anna, I think our parents are hiding something terrible. Mr. Wilson's office was located in an old building downtown, with dark wood paneling and law books filling shelves up to the ceiling. Anna and Melissa sat side by side in worn leather chairs as the elderly lawyer placed a thick folder on the table. Ladies Thompson, he began, his tone solemn. What I'm about to share with you should have been revealed long ago. Unfortunately, certain legal threats made by your parents prevented me from fulfilling Richard's true wishes. He opened the folder and pulled out a document. This is your grandfather's true will, signed 2 weeks before his death. He left half of his considerable fortune directly to you, Anna. Anna blinked, surprised. But why would he do that? I was only 19. Your grandfather always believed in your potential, Mr. Wilson explained gently. He often told me you had the family's legal mind, even though your parents were determined to push you toward medicine. That doesn't make sense, Melissa interrupted, frowning. Why would our parents hide this? They didn't need the money desperately back then. Mr. Wilson adjusted his glasses, appearing suddenly older and more tired. In fact, they did. Your parents had made disastrous investments. They were on the verge of bankruptcy. Richard's fortune was their only salvation. Anna felt a knot forming in her stomach. "Mr. Wilson, what exactly did you mean yesterday about the circumstances surrounding Grandpa's death?" The lawyer looked at both of them for a long moment. Richard was in excellent health for a 75-year-old man. His sudden death from heart failure seemed suspicious to me, especially considering he had called me just 2 days before, saying he wanted to make further changes to his will to ensure you, Anna, received support for law school, regardless of your parents' approval. A heavy silence fell over the room. Melissa paled, her hands trembling slightly. "Grandpa was on heart medication," she whispered. "Digoxin. Mom always prepared his medications when he visited. A digoxin overdose would cause symptoms easily mistaken for a natural heart attack," Mr. Wilson noted gravely, "especially if no one suspected foul play." Anna felt as though the air had been sucked out of the room. "Are you suggesting our parents—" Mr. Wilson sighed deeply. "I can't prove anything, but Richard called me the day he died, sounding alarmed. He said he had found Patricia tampering with his medications and that they had a heated argument. Edward intervened before our discussion could continue, but I saw something in his eyes that I had never seen before. Fear, guilt. He was planning to go to my office the next morning. He never made it. Why didn't you go to the police?" Melissa asked, her voice trembling. "Without concrete evidence, it was just the word of an old lawyer. And your parents quickly arranged for cremation, against Richard's expressed wishes for a traditional burial." He paused, looking directly at Anna. "But perhaps it's not too late for the truth to come to light, especially if we can find proof." "How?" Anna asked, feeling both numb and hyper-alert. "Your parents kept Richard's house intact all these years," Melissa said slowly. "They never sold or rented it. They said it was for sentimental reasons, but they never let me explore certain rooms, including Grandpa's office." Mr. Wilson nodded thoughtfully. "If there's evidence to be found, it will be there. Richard was meticulous with records and notes." Anna looked at her sister, seeing for the first time not the favored child who had received all the love Anna never had, but a potential ally in the quest for truth. "Would you help us, Mel? It would mean—" Anna hesitated. "It would potentially incriminate our parents," Melissa completed, her face serious. "But if they really did something so horrible to Grandpa, and to you, then they aren't the people I thought they were my whole life." Anna reached out, and after a moment of hesitation, Melissa took her hand. Mr. Wilson watched the sisters with a mix of sadness and hope. "There's one last thing you should know," he said, pulling an envelope from the folder. "Richard left this letter for you, Anna. He instructed me to deliver it on your 21st birthday, but your parents obtained a court order, preventing me from contacting you, claiming you were emotionally unstable and had voluntarily severed ties with the family." With trembling fingers, Anna opened the yellowed envelope and began to read her grandfather's handwritten letter. Tears started streaming down her face as she absorbed his words of love, encouragement, and unwavering faith in her potential. The last line struck deep into her heart. "Always remember, my dear Anna, that the true inheritance I leave to you is not in bank accounts or properties, but in your integrity and determination. You have the strength to face any storm, even those created by those who should protect you. Never let anyone dim your light." Richard Thompson's old Victorian house stood like a silent sentinel at the end of the tree-lined street, its tall windows reflecting the setting sun like watchful eyes. Anna and Melissa lingered on the sidewalk for a moment, contemplating the imposing structure that had been so central in their childhood memories. "They're never home on Wednesdays," Melissa explained, pulling a key from her purse. "Mom has her book club and Dad plays golf." Anna nodded, feeling a strange mix of nostalgia and apprehension as they walked along the stone path to the front porch. The scent of roses from the garden brought a wave of memories. Summer afternoons helping her grandfather prune the rose bushes, his gentle hands guiding hers as he patiently explained the difference between maintenance cuts and formative cuts. The key turned in the lock with a soft click, and the door opened to a spacious entryway. The interior was immaculate, every surface polished and gleaming, every object carefully positioned, the sterile perfection that Patricia Thompson had always demanded. "Grandpa's office is at the end of the hallway," Melissa whispered, though there was no one to hear them. Dad converted part of it into an office for himself, but kept most of Grandpa's things intact, like a kind of museum. They crossed the hallway, their footsteps muffled by the thick carpet. Anna noted that there were no photographs of her on the walls. It was as if she had been completely erased from the family history. There were only smiling images of Melissa at various ages, along with Edward and Patricia, in perfectly composed poses. The office door was locked. Melissa hesitated. I never had the key to this room. Anna examined the old lock. It looks simple. Do you have a hairpin? Melissa looked at her sister with a mix of surprise and reluctant admiration as she handed over a pin from her hair. Where did you learn to pick locks? You develop interesting skills when you live in your car, Anna replied dryly, manipulating the pin in the lock. After a few moments of concentration, she heard a satisfying click and the door swung open. The office was a study in contrasts. Half the room remained as Richard had left it. Shelves of old books, a worn leather armchair, a solid oak desk. The other half had been transformed into Edward's workspace, featuring modern technology and contemporary furniture. The division was so clear it almost felt like a physical metaphor for the conflict between past and present. Where do we start? Melissa asked, glancing around uncertainly. By looking in the places Dad would avoid, Anna replied, heading for the old desk. Grandpa always hid important things in the most obvious places, believing no one would think to look there. She carefully examined the desk, her fingers sliding under the drawers, testing the bottom of each one. In the third drawer, she felt it. A slight unevenness, almost imperceptible. Pressing firmly, a secret compartment opened, revealing a small leather-bound journal. His diary, Anna breathed, recognizing the elegant handwriting. He wrote in it every night. The sisters sat side by side in the old armchair, reverently flipping through the pages. The notes began casually. Daily reflections, thoughts on readings, observations about the garden. But as they approached the final entries, the tone shifted. April 15th, Patricia and Edward visited today. They were unusually interested in my finances. Patricia specifically asked about my plans to support Anna in law school. When I expressed my enthusiasm for the path she's chosen, Edward became visibly irritated. There was a tension in the air that I couldn't quite decipher. April 28th, I argued with Patricia today about Anna. I don't understand why they are so opposed to her career choice. Patricia mentioned financial problems, but when I tried to offer help, she flatly refused. There's something they're not telling me. May 2nd, I called Mr. Wilson today. I'm going to change my will to ensure Anna has the funds for her education, regardless of her parents' approval. I also plan to confront Edward and Patricia about their behavior. I fear things might get tense, but I can't stay silent any longer. The last entry, dated May 3rd on the day of his death, was brief and haunting. I found Patricia tampering with my medications this morning. When I confronted her, she became defensive and accusatory. Edward intervened before our discussion could continue, but I saw something in his eyes that I had never seen before. Fear, guilt. I'm going to Mr. Wilson's office tomorrow to finalize changes to my will. I'm also considering a candid conversation with Anna about her parents. She deserves to know the truth about... The entry ended abruptly. Anna and Melissa looked at each other, the horror of realization beginning to settle in. We have to keep looking, Anna said, her voice firm despite the tremor in her hands. They methodically searched the office, examining every book, every drawer, every corner. It was Melissa who made the next discovery. In a locked drawer in Edward's desk, a folder labeled Medical Matters, Richard T. Inside were prescriptions, medical records, and more damning, a notebook in Patricia's handwriting detailing the dosages of Richard's medication, with specific notes about digoxin. Oh my God, Melissa whispered, flipping through the pages. She was gradually increasing the doses here. 3 days before his death, she doubled the amount. Anna took the notebook, her legal training kicking in as she scrutinized the notes with a clinical eye. This is strong circumstantial evidence, but we need more. They continued searching, each discovery adding another piece to the dark puzzle. Bank statements showing the Thompsons on the brink of bankruptcy. A torn draft of a letter from Richard to Anna, expressing his pride in her decision to pursue law. And finally, hidden in a seemingly mundane file labeled Taxes 2013, a printed email from Edward to Patricia, dated the day before Richard's death. He knows, or at least suspects. We have no choice now. The plan for tonight stands. Make sure everything appears natural. Remember, it's the only way to save our family from financial disaster. Think of Melissa and her future. Richard lived a long and good life. It's time to think of ourselves. Anna let the paper fall, feeling nauseated. This is practically a confession. Melissa was silently crying, her shoulders shaking. How could they? How could they do this to Grandpa? To you? Anna hugged her sister, feeling years of resentment melt away in the face of their shared pain. I don't know who they really are, Mel. I never did. A sudden sound, the front door creaking open, froze them in place. Familiar voices echoed down the hallway. I'm sure I left my briefcase here, Edward's voice came. It'll just take a minute to grab. Quick, Anna whispered, shoving the incriminating documents into Melissa's bag. We have to get out of here. Too late. The office door swung open, and Edward Thompson stood in the doorway, his face shifting from surprise to shock, then to a cold rage at seeing his daughters together, among the scattered documents in his office. What does this mean? He demanded, his voice dangerously calm. Patricia appeared behind him, gasping at the scene. What are you doing? Melissa, how could you bring her into our home? Anna slowly stood, facing her parents with a calm she didn't feel. We're uncovering the truth about Grandpa's death. Patricia's face paled. Edward took a threatening step toward his daughters, but Anna stood firm. Don't come any closer. All the documents have been photographed and sent to Mr. Wilson and to my partner at the law firm. If anything happens to us, the evidence goes straight to the police. It was a bluff, but it worked. Edward halted, his face a mask of cold calculation. What do you want? Justice, Anna replied simply. For Grandpa, and for all the people you've harmed along the way. The police station buzzed with activity, but Detective Morgan had reserved a private interrogation room where Anna and Melissa presented the evidence they had gathered. The burly middle-aged man listened intently, taking detailed notes as they explained their discovery. This is extraordinary, he commented when they finished, leafing through the documents carefully. Cases of homicide this old are rarely reopened, let alone solved, but you've assembled a compelling set of circumstantial evidence. Will it be enough? Anna asked, her legal training telling her that even with everything they've found, proving murder after so long would be challenging. With the email confession, the diary, the medication notes, plus the clear financial motive. The detective nodded slowly. It's more than we have in most current cases. We'll need search warrants to officially document everything, and we may need to exhume the body if any tissue was preserved before the cremation. Would there be any tissue after all this time? Melissa asked, looking pale. Standard procedure in natural death cases is to preserve some tissue and blood samples for a period, the detective explained. It's not guaranteed, but we can check with the coroner who handled the case. In the following weeks, the investigation progressed with a speed that surprised even Anna. Warrants were obtained. The Thompsons' house was officially searched, and by an extraordinary stroke of luck, samples of Richard's tissue had been preserved due to a medical study underway at the time of his death. Toxicology tests confirmed what Anna and Melissa had already suspected: lethal levels of digoxin, far beyond any doctor would have prescribed. The noose was tightening. Edward and Patricia Thompson were arrested on a Tuesday morning, in front of the cameras of journalists, alerted to the sensational case of a prominent couple accused of killing their father to gain his inheritance. The ensuing trial became a media spectacle, with Anna reluctantly thrust into the spotlight as the disowned daughter who exposed the truth. In the courtroom, sitting next to Melissa in the witness stand, Hannah felt a strange sense of déjà vu as she watched her parents at the defense table. This time, however, it was they who appeared small and defeated, their previously confident expressions replaced by looks of despair. The prosecutor, a woman in her 40s with piercing eyes, methodically presented the case. What we have here is a calculated crime motivated by pure greed. Edward and Patricia Thompson were on the brink of financial ruin when they discovered that Richard Thompson intended to alter his will to benefit his granddaughter Anna, the same daughter they would later throw out of the house when she pursued the path her grandfather had encouraged. They made the conscious decision to silence him permanently. The trial stretched over 3 tense weeks. The prosecutor built her case painstakingly, presenting evidence after evidence, Patricia's detailed notes on increasing medication dosages, Edward's incriminating email, financial records showing their desperate situation, and the heartfelt testimony of Mr. Wilson about his last conversations with Richard. The most impactful moment came when the forensic toxicologist presented her findings. The concentration of digoxin in the preserved tissue was approximately 4 times the maximum therapeutic dose, she explained to the jury. In my professional opinion, this is consistent with intentional poisoning, not medication error or suicide. The defense attorneys fought desperately, questioning the chain of custody of the tissue samples and arguing that Patricia's notes were simply misunderstood medical records from a concerned daughter. But their expressions revealed that even they knew they were fighting a losing battle. On the final day of the trial, Anna was called as a witness. As she took the stand, she met her parents' eyes for the first time since the arrest. Edward looked away, but Patricia held her gaze with a mix of anger and something that could almost be regret. "Miss Thompson," the prosecutor began, "could you describe for the jury the events that led you to investigate your grandfather's death?" Anna took a deep breath, her voice clear and steady as she recounted the story. Her love for her grandfather, the eviction from home, her years of struggle, the court case that brought her face to face with her parents again, and the shocking revelation from Mr. Wilson that triggered it all. "Why did your parents throw you out of the house?" the prosecutor asked. "Because I chose to pursue law instead of medicine," Anna replied simply. "My grandfather supported my choice. My parents did not." "And when did this happen in relation to your grandfather's death?" 3 months later." The prosecutor nodded thoughtfully. "Miss Thompson, in your professional opinion as an attorney, what do you believe would have happened had your grandfather been able to alter his will as intended?" "Objection," shouted the defense attorney. "Asks for speculation." "I'll rephrase," the prosecutor responded gently. "Miss Thompson, based on the documents you discovered, what was your grandfather's expressed intent concerning you?" Anna looked at her grandfather's diary, now formal evidence. "He intended to ensure that I had the means to pursue my legal education, regardless of my parents' approval. He was concerned about their opposition and wanted to protect me. Protection that you never received," the prosecutor noted. "No," Anna quietly agreed. "Instead, I slept in my car for 3 months after being thrown out." A murmur rippled through the courtroom. One of the jurors discreetly wiped away a tear. When the defense had its chance to cross-examine her, the attorney took an aggressive approach. "Miss Thompson, isn't it true that you have a clear personal interest in the outcome of this trial, that you could potentially gain financially from your parents' conviction?" Anna looked directly at the man. "I have already signed legal documents renouncing any claim to my grandfather's inheritance. The money will be placed in a trust for supporting low-income law students. My only interest is justice for my grandfather." The attorney hesitated, clearly not expecting this response. His cross-examination quickly unraveled after that. In closing arguments, the prosecutor was direct. This case is not just about premeditated murder for greed. It's about how Edward and Patricia Thompson betrayed every sacred family bond, first murdering Richard Thompson, then expelling their own daughter when she pursued the path her grandfather had encouraged, and finally lying to their younger daughter for years. The jury must deliver justice, not only for Richard Thompson, but for all those who have been harmed by these deplorable actions. The jury deliberated for only 4 hours before returning with a unanimous verdict, guilty of first-degree murder. The sentencing was swift and severe, life in prison without the possibility of parole for both. As officers led Edward and Patricia away, Melissa squeezed Anna's hand. "It's over," she whispered, silent tears streaming down her face. But Anna knew that it wasn't really over. It was merely the end of one chapter and the beginning of another, one in which the truth, painful as it was, had finally come to light. 6 months after the trial, Anna was in her new office, reviewing documents for her next case. The space was modest but cozy, with large windows allowing natural light and a view of the city park. A discreet sign on the door read, Thompson Legal Services, Tenant Defense and Community Advocacy. A gentle knock on the door was followed by Melissa entering, carrying 2 cups of coffee. In the months since their parents' conviction, Melissa had transformed from a privileged and somewhat naive young woman into a dedicated legal assistant, currently enrolled in her first semester of Knight Law School. "I brought your fuel," she said with a smile, placing one of the mugs on Anna's desk. "Claire Peterson is in the reception area for the 4 p.m. meeting." Anna nodded, taking a grateful sip. "Thanks, Mel. Could you send her in 5 minutes?" After their parents' conviction, Anna and Melissa had faced difficult decisions. The Grand Victorian house, the substantial fortune built partially with Richard's money, the Thompson business empire, all were tainted by their parents' actions. Anna's solution had been radical yet liberating: to establish the Richard Thompson Trust Fund for restitution to the victims of their parents, including tenants who had been exploited over the years. The rest was directed towards scholarships for law students facing financial hardships, particularly those interested in housing justice and advocacy for vulnerable communities. For herself, Anna wanted nothing from the tainted inheritance, as she called it. Instead, she used her growing reputation as an attorney to open her own small office, focused specifically on defending tenants against abusive landlords and working with community organizations to protect low-income residents from predatory gentrification. Claire Peterson entered the office with a warm smile. Since the eviction case that had reunited Anna with her parents, Claire had become not only a client but a friend and eventual partner in creating a tenants association for the neighborhood. "We have 20 people confirmed for tomorrow's meeting," Claire announced, sitting in the chair across from Anna. "And 2 other buildings want to start their own associations. Your work is inspiring a lot of people, Anna." Anna smiled, feeling a wave of genuine satisfaction. "It's not just my work. It's a collective effort." After the meeting, Anna walked to the window, watching the park where people strolled, enjoying the last rays of autumn sun. Her phone rang. It was Mr. Wilson. "Anna, just checking in to see how you're doing. I passed by the building where your grandfather started his legal career today and thought of you." The elderly lawyer's voice brought a smile to Anna's face. In recent months, he had become a sort of mentor and father figure to her. "I'm well, Mr. Wilson. Busy, but it's a good kind of busy." "How's your health?" "Oh, grumbling as always, but still here. I was thinking, your grandfather would have turned 87 today." Anna felt a pang in her chest. "I know. Melissa and I are going to visit his memorial in the Botanical Garden tonight." After the trial, with the truth finally revealed, Anna and Melissa had created a small memorial for Richard in the Botanical Garden he loved to visit. A simple bench with a plaque that read, "In memory of Richard Thompson, who taught that true inheritance lies in integrity and compassion. He would be so proud of you." "Anna," Mr. Wilson said softly, "not just for what you've achieved, but for who you've become despite everything." As she hung up, Anna found Melissa standing at the door, watching her with a gentle smile. "I was thinking," Melissa began, "maybe we should expand the office next year. The client waiting list keeps growing." Anna considered the suggestion. In recent months, her reputation had grown, partly due to the publicity from the trial, but mainly due to the consistent and dedicated work she had been doing. What had started as a personal mission to prove her worth had transformed into something larger than herself. "Maybe you're right," she agreed. "When you graduate, we can really make this grow." Melissa smiled, her eyes shining with determination. "A Thompson firm that truly represents justice. Grandpa would have loved that." That night, sitting on the memorial bench, the 2 sisters watched the sunset paint the sky orange and pink. They didn't speak much, they didn't need to. The journey they had taken since that first reunion in court had forged a bond between them stronger than blood or shared memories. "I never imagined we'd be here," Melissa finally said, breaking the contemplative silence. "Growing up as the favorite daughter, I never really questioned what happened to you. I believed their version without hesitation." "You were a child," Anna replied gently. "You had no way of knowing." "Still," Melissa insisted, "I should have questioned more. I should have sought you out sooner." Anna turned to look at her younger sister, really look at her. She saw not just the favored child who had received all the love Anna never had, but a young woman who had faced the shattering of all her certainties and emerged stronger and wiser. What matters is where we are now, Anna said, squeezing Melissa's hand. Building something new, something better. As the garden lights began to twinkle against the darkening sky, Anna thought of all the people whose lives she had touched in the past year. Claire and the other tenants, the students who received scholarships from the trust fund, the families who now had safe homes thanks to her advocacy work. Her grandfather was right. The true inheritance had never been in bank accounts or properties. It was in the values he had tried to impart, in the example he had set, and in the strength he had always seen in her, even when no one else did. In a world where her own blood family had chosen greed over love and lies over truth, Anna had found a different path. She had transformed her pain into purpose, her suffering into strength for others, and finally proven her worth, not to gain her parents' approval, but to honor the legacy of the man who had always believed in her. And in that quiet moment, beneath the first stars of the night, Anna Thompson finally felt complete. If you enjoyed this gripping story of justice and family redemption, don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more captivating narratives like this. Leave your like and share your thoughts in the comments about who your favorite character was and what you thought of Anna's journey. Your reactions are the greatest motivation for us to continue bringing stories that move and inspire.